My name is Aimee Daly. My mom left my dad when I was 6 years old, and my mom worked a lot of hours. She worked like 3 jobs, and we were made to go back to my dad's for the summers. There he began sexually molesting me. I called my mom crying, and I begged her to please come get me, not telling her really everything that was going on, just that I didn't want to be there. And she told me that I had to stay. She had no choice but to work. When I finally told my mom why I didn't want to go back, she filed charges against him. By the time we went back to court, the statute of limitations had ran out. I was 15. I seen my dad in the courtroom. He wouldn't speak to me, wouldn't even look at me. That was the last time I seen my dad. When I was 16, I heard my mom screaming and crying, which is something that I didn't ever hear. My mom always taught us that that was a sign of weakness, and tears weren't allowed in our family. So I knew something really bad had happened. She called me and my younger sister into the room and told me that my dad had fallen asleep drunk with a cigarette, and he was dead. When we went to the funeral, I didn't even cry at his funeral. I began to isolate myself really bad after that. 16 was just a really hard year for me. Started running away from home. I had quit school. I didn't want to go to school anymore. I had met a guy that was 3 years older than me. He was also a drinker, but I didn't really understand what alcoholism meant, or that, I never did it. I knew that because of the things that my dad did and because of his drinking and where it left our family, that drinking was something that I never wanted to do. I never wanted to be that person. I began going out. It started out with my sisters, still thinking, well, there's no way I'm going to become an alcoholic, I just don't want to be alone. I'm upset. Started going out to the bars. I started feeling good about myself. I felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I could be myself. I could hang out I could have friends. I could have a social life. That started becoming a problem. Instead of going out just on the nights that the kids were gone, my sister lived there, so it was easy for me to, once the kids went to bed, I started going out even more, to where it was 5-6 nights a week. It wasn't long after that me and my sister's relationship started getting worse. I was gone a lot. She started talking to me about, Aimee, I really think your alcohol is becoming a problem. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, I'm only hurting myself, I'm not hurting anybody. Like, I like to drink, I like to be around people. Me and her had a lot of talks about the molestation of our father, and she always took it harder than me. She always used to ask me, Aimee, how do you stay so strong after what you went through? And when I started drinking a lot and started becoming an alcoholic, I think she was more hurt than anything. And she said, Aimee, we made a promise to each other that we would never become drinkers, that we wouldn't allow this to happen to us. My sister, shortly after that, she moved out. She couldn't take it anymore. I began drinking worse than I ever did. I didn't work. For the first time in my life, I couldn't work. I was so sick. I isolated myself for weeks, not showering, not eating. I didn't want to be seen in public. The guilt and shame of who I had become was so bad that I was an embarrassment to myself. I was an embarrassment to my kids. I remember crying uncontrollably. I went and dumped my vodka out, and I hit my knees, and I prayed, God, please help me. Please take this from me. I was sick. I needed help. I can't even explain to you what I felt that night, but I knew something was different. I knew I had taken my last drink that night. I went to the Kara's house. When I first walked in, it was unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, it was just so beautiful. Like I instantly felt a peace, comfortable. It's not, I never once felt like I was homeless going there. I felt like I was home. Like this is where my life was going to change, and I just knew it. Through all these years, I never realized that alcohol was the reason why my life was falling apart. I was so quick to blame it on the men in my life or the situations that, were happening to me. I didn't understand, why was I always homeless? Why was I always being hit on, But I wasn't an alcoholic, That wasn't the problem. My life wouldn't have changed if it wasn't for the Caris House. The Caris House brought me out of hopelessness to having hope.